By default, when we execute a command, the process it creates will run in the foreground, blocking the use of the shell until it completes. For most of these commands, it's not a problem as they're quite fast, but it's not always desirable when it comes to longer-lived processes, such as running a web server, for instance, which is basically an infinite loop. So if we want to run a long process in the background instead of a foreground and still be able to use our terminal window, we can go two ways. The first method consists in placing an ampersand character at the end of the command line. What this ampersand does is tell the shell to run the command as a background task called a job and to immediately give the prompt back to perform other tasks. For this lesson, we'll use the NC utility, which is a shorthand for netcat, that is used for just about anything under the sun involving TCP and UDP, which are both protocols that enable applications to send and receive messages over the internet. So let's start by creating a simple TCP server that listens for incoming connections on the port 8080. Just so you know, the D flag here is used to prevent netcat from reading from the standard input, the K flag is used to keep alive the server in case of a client disconnect, and the L flag is used to listen for incoming messages. Without the ampersand character, the server is running in the foreground and the shell is awaiting for it to finish in order to give us the prompt back. You can test out the server yourself by opening a second terminal window and run a simple client using netcat once again that will connect to that server. Here, 127.0.0.1 is the IP address of the local host, which is the default name describing the local computer address, also known as the loopback address. If we now type in a message into the client's terminal window and press enter, we can see that the server receives it and prints it out in its standard output. What if we now wanted to be able to run the server and the client from the same terminal window? To do this, we can first interrupt the server using Ctrl+C, close the client's window, and run the server again using the ampersand character this time, while redirecting the server std out into a log file and silencing the std error. We can now see that the prompt reappears right away alongside with an additional output. The first number in between brackets is called a job number and is assigned by the job manager to identify a suspended or running process in the background. The second one is called the process identifier and is assigned by the system itself to uniquely identify an active process. Now that our server is running in the background, we can reconnect to it using the command we've just seen, send it a few more messages, and eventually print the log file. But now the question is, how do we bring back our server's process into the foreground in order to stop it, for example? For that, we can simply use the FG command, which indeed stands for foreground, and hit the Ctrl+C key combination. Let's now imagine that we have not only one, but several servers running at the same time. Since it would be quite a challenge to remember all of the processes we put in the background, we can use the jobs built-in command to get a full list of the running jobs. Now, to selectively bring a job into the foreground, we can use the FG command once again, but this time in combination with the job number preceded by a percentage character. Finally, what if instead of stopping the script, we now wanted to send it back to the foreground? The best way to do this is to first suspend the execution of this process using Ctrl+Z followed by the BG command, which stands for background, followed by its job number like so. And that wraps it up for this lesson. Just so you know, whenever you run a long process in a background that takes a while to complete, like a script for example, the shell will automatically prompt you upon termination so you don't have to keep track of it.